Are two PayPal Mafia billionaires, including the richest man on the planet, quietly stacking Bitcoin? And if so, why now? Elon Musk just liked a tweet suggesting he's secretly buying Bitcoin. If it kind of makes you ask, was PayPal always just a prototype? It was a failed attempt at free global money that Bitcoin is now making a reality. Let's rewind a second. Musk's journey with Bitcoin has been chaotic, to say the least. In 2021, after some coaxing, Tesla and SpaceX bought Bitcoin. But then Tesla sold some, and then they stopped accepting Bitcoin payments. And critics screamed, Elon doesn't get it. But quietly, over time, Tesla has begun to accumulate Bitcoin again. So though Elon might not have understood in 2021, maybe he does now, especially as he turns his back on Trump, calling out deficit spending and throws his support behind Thomas Massie, a congressman who himself was orange-pilled after reading the Bitcoin Standard, spurring him to create a bill to end the Federal Reserve. If Elon's waking up to Bitcoin's true purpose and decides to actually use his extensive influence and $410 billion net worth to support it, this could change things a bit. But here's the twist. He's not alone. Another PayPal founder is also making moves this week, one that might be even more strategic. Of course, I'm referring to billionaire Peter Thiel. And his current moves in the Bitcoin space have ties to a financial disaster going back to March of 2023. And we'll discuss that in a bit. But for now, we have a powerhouse panel ready to break this all down and discuss many, many more bullish topics. We've got Brandon Quittem from Swan Bitcoin, author of Bitcoin is the Mycelium of Money. We've got Jim Crider from Intentional Living, helping families achieve true financial freedom. And of course, the lovely DJ Valerie B. Love, podcast host, building a more prosperous and peaceful future. Smash that like button. This one is going to be good. I am Ben with the Btcsessions, and this is your bullish session. All right, I want to bring in my guests. Welcome to the stage, Brandon, Val, and Jim. Thank you guys so much for joining me. And let's chat a little bit at the topic at hand, and then we're going to dive into why you guys are bullish. So I want to show you guys the tweet. I'm going to get you guys some of your thoughts, some of your general takeaways from what we're seeing, and maybe a delve into Elon's mind and the debacles that have happened this year. But let's take a quick peek here. So this was the original tweet here. So Vandalay BTC Industries tweeting, has anyone noticed how Elon Musk talks a lot about things like overspending and debt and bad government decisions in general, but has completely stopped talking about Bitcoin, the most sane path out of this mess? It doesn't add up. What's he hiding? And CoinJoin Chris from Seedor, awesome dude, replied, maybe he's stacking quietly. And he included with this screenshot, a screenshot of Elon Musk liking his tweet. Now, a lot of people were saying, hey, you know, no blue check. This is BS. It's faked. But don't trust, verify. He went in and screen grabbed him going through the tweet, clicking on the likes, and then going down to the like from Elon Musk and clicking on it and seeing that it's actually his account. So indeed, Elon did like that tweet. And then on the other side of things, I was alluding to Peter Thiel, just because in the vein of former PayPal co-founders getting into the Bitcoin space. So Peter Thiel is joining forces with Palmer Luckey, I believe is the last name, and they're launching a new bank to kind of fill the gap left by Silicon Valley Bank, which blew up in 2023. And that bank famously banked a lot of the Bitcoin and crypto startups, and partly was a victim of some of the choke point 2.0 stuff, which seems to have now subsided with the new administration. So, seems to be maybe just strategically positioning himself for a gap in the market that can be filled now. but who knows? Maybe also a little bit of recognition around the importance of Bitcoin. So, with that, I want to get your guys' thoughts. Is Elon finally getting it? Is he continuing to stack? We know that Tesla has added back some of the stack that they sold from filings, but yeah, anybody who wants to dive in, what are your thoughts?
All right, I can kick us off here. First off, Elon runs what, like 10 companies, and he somehow finds time to play Diablo 5 hours a day. He's on Twitter at least 5 hours a day, mining the depths of the posts for some obscure Bitcoin posts and engages with it. That's just absolutely nuts. I'm not surprised the man's stacking, right? He had a big bag for a while now. I think he understands it well enough to own it, but I do not have any illusion that he went deep on this thing. If you remember in 2021, he didn't understand proof of work. He doesn't understand the difference between a monetary asset and a currency. And I don't expect him to understand those things. But what did change is he went deep into the belly of the beast, tried to change the government from the inside out, cut things here, there with the Doge, right? And he came to the obvious realization for Bitcoiners that there's no difference between political parties. Nothing stops this train, meaning that you got to print the money, right? We built a monetary system that demands ever increasing supply. There's no way around that. And we find ourselves now at the end of the long-term debt cycle, also in the middle of a fourth turning. When we're in these type of conditions, you have too much debt. What do you do about it? Well, you could have a decade of austerity, tighten the belt, but guess what? There's no political energy for that. You could totally just default and just not pay back all the countries owning our debt, but obviously that's not going to happen. So the only thing left is to try to grow your way out of it. So Scott Bessent, Treasury Secretary, a few days ago admitted straight up, hey guys, we're printing money and we're going to invest it well, and we're going to just hope to outgrow the debt. But what that means for investors is that long-term government debt is going to be lower than the long-term interest rates for 5, 10, maybe longer. So essentially financial repression for a very long time, try and get the debt under control and try to shoot the moon with AI, reshoring industry. I don't really have high hopes and all that kind of stuff. So the net effect here is buy Bitcoin and watch the world burn around you, and do your best to save your friends and family. Yeah, that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'd echo the once you're in the belly of the beast and you see, I mean, some of the stuff that he found, let alone just what was it? There was multiple computers around the country that, before we understood there's a process to money creation. And this just didn't even observe the absurd system we already had. It was just like, it would just pay debts with newly created money, literally from just these individual computers around the country.
Yeah, and to tie on that, there was another point around essentially government agencies ask for a budget and they say, hey, government, here's my budget. The people who can send the money just auto send the money. I'm not sure if that's the same thing you're talking about, but
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. No one reconciles it. No one says, do you deserve this amount of money? What do you do with it? Nothing. It just auto pays every invoice, which is obviously our tax dollars going to who knows what.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Val, I'm curious again, as somebody that's along for the ride, and you're talking regularly with people that they get Bitcoin, they're experiencing this stage of fiat, this age of fiat that we're in, where lives have been really, really affected by it. What's your reaction to not only kind of the age that we're in, but also seeing people go and try to fix things and then realize that it's just insurmountable?
The word rock bottom is, the phrase rock bottom is a thing that I think a lot of us look at with, when people are going to start to understand Bitcoin, when they're going to start to understand their health and wellness, when they're going to start to understand relationship issues. If if we're living in this kind of, marshmallow fluffy zone and everything's kind of okay, like there's no incentive for us to go change. And we're doing okay, but we're not like, thriving, but we're still kind of in this middle zone. And, for me personally, like when I'm, doing my women's groups or when I'm working with the kids or whatever, it's like, unless there's a pain point that is so devastating, and you look at like, marketing 101, business 101, your job as a business owner is to, find the pain point and create a bridge from A to B. And if people are in this, numb, dumb, scared, sick, and broke mode, they're not going to, have enough energy to try to go learn about Bitcoin. They're overwhelmed. They're like, fuck off. Like, I want to go. Oh, sorry. Am I allowed to curse on here?
You can say anything you like. Don't worry.
Okay, cool.
I've already been banned before. What's one more?
And I'm so glad you got back, Ben. I'm so happy. Like whatever the heck happened there. I mean, I imagined it was an AI bot that got you, but
Probably.
and that's obviously something we have to think about, and that's a whole nother conversation. But for me, like even just yesterday, I had a 2-hour conversation with somebody who they want to understand Bitcoin. They want to learn it, but they're so afraid to take a step. And I'm like, I'm going to send you, $20 in Bitcoin and download this app, and it's super easy. And we'll start from like, custody to self-custody and the whole thing. And there's this, layer of fear and resistance. And I think until there's enough pain, and I think that's why obviously El Salvador and these other countries, and obviously we're looking at all sorts of, countries within the continent of Africa, that adopting Bitcoin means like life or death, but when we're looking at, Canada or the United States or other, first world countries, there's not enough pain yet. I don't think we have enough pain, and not that I wish we would have pain, but the reality of us stubborn humans and these little things called our egos, like we're not going to go jump into something until it's like, I have to, and so you kind of look at that, the bell curve. It's like most people, and I really thought we were here to talk about creatine, and here you are, Brandon,
there we go. I'm sure Jim just had his right before he jumped on, right, Jim?
But do you know what I'm saying? Like most people, until there's like a thorn in your shoe, you're not going to pay attention to what's going on. And it is what it is, right? And so I think we just have to not resist what human nature is. But we also have to, like, instead of trying to like bang people over the head who aren't ready, like let's redirect our focus to the folks who need it the most and whose lives depend on it. And so that's where I see all these circular economies showing up, and I'm talking with Herman from Bitcoin and Kazi, and, Mike at Bitcoin Beach, and all, we're talking about doing a circular economy tour next year, and working with Alana, who did Unbanked, and Desi. And it's just like, how do we show the pain points that create the need that is so great for Bitcoin, and then showing like, how is it working in these micro communities, right? And so how are we orange pilling, the vendor on the pupusa, or, the yoga studio or whatever. And so anyway, blah, blah, blah. I can go off on a tangent on this all day, but yeah, I think unfortunately there's not enough pain yet.
Yeah, that's fair. Jim, I want to get your quick thoughts as well on again, the rift that, gradually developed, well, not very suddenly developed, between Trump and Elon. And, is he starting to maybe figure some stuff out, or do you think no?
Yeah, I mean, Elon, in probably almost every capacity, is way smarter than I am. And I reckon that after venturing deep in the belly of the beast, he's come to terms that he cannot fix the numerator. So he's been forced to reconcile the denominator. All right, well, I think it's probably that simple. Like if this is accurate, that's probably why. Numerator's broken. If you're going to fix the equation, it has to be what's under the line, and that's what he's trying to tackle. Yeah, fair. Well, I mean, I guess anybody that really gets a good peek at how things work, unless they're benefiting directly from it, it's pretty quick. It's an easier task to sell them
on Bitcoin. But nonetheless, let's wrap on the Elon stuff. He gets enough attention as it is, and let's get to the meat of the episode, which is why you guys are bullish. And so we're gonna start with our first guest here, and Brandon. Again, you've been on the show before. I've really enjoyed every time we've gotten to chat. It's always great seeing you in person as well. But I'm curious, what is top of mind for you this week? Why are you bullish?
Absolutely. Can I share the tweet with you, or you pull that one up from Stefan?
Yes, absolutely.
Otherwise, I can
actually, if you can drop the you dropped it to me on Twitter, if I'm not mistaken. Oh yeah, here it is. Hold on. Let me pull it over and get it on my screen here really quick.
Beautiful.
Okay. Here we go. Sorry for the delay there. Boom, boom. That's the one.
There she is. All right, this is an absolute banger from Stefan here. I'll just read it for those who might be listening in the audio only. You think NGU will make Bitcoiners sing Kumbaya together? We're 4% down from all-time high, probably less now. We've got all kind of arguments going. Ossifiers versus the soft forkers, knots versus core, trustodial L2s, our treasury codes, shitcoins or Ponzi's, multi-sig vendor lock-in, spend versus hodl, mining decentralization. It never stops. See you in Valhalla. And first of all, amazing tweet, Stefan. Well done. But the reason why I'm bullish about this is because it shows to me that the Bitcoin community is not getting too complacent, right? I think there is a long-term risk of Bitcoiners, especially the early core, who's much more ideological. But what happens when all the ideologues who are fighting for the network, the cypherpunk energy, what happens when they all get rich and they go get a Citadel and they maybe don't fight anymore, right? Going back to Val, this is human nature, right? This is what happens. So it's a very real risk. And even with NGU happening, people making money, punting on treasury codes, all this crazy stuff, we still have people fighting the good fight, and Bitcoiners are still chirping on Twitter, right? And if you just scroll Twitter quickly, what do you find? You see NGU. It's all NGU. And guess what? Every single cycle, bull cycle at least, is dominated by NGU. That's human nature. There's no way around it. But if you look under the hood a little bit, the cypherpunk tools are still being built out. One to mention that caught my eye was Cali BTC. There's many others, of course, but he was building some cool stuff with the eCash protocol and ways to scale that out. I think that's amazing. It gets no love relatively, but it's happening. And the other thing is that the social layer of Bitcoin, we come from different backgrounds, extremely different backgrounds, and yet we have this shared monetary protocol that we're all surrounding, right? You can call it a Schelling point. We didn't just like get online and create a cult and say, join the cult. No, we all found Bitcoin through our own ways. And although we display cult-like tendencies, we all have our own little reasons for being here. And that ragtag group of people from different backgrounds fighting over stuff passionately is a very good sign of this stage of adoption. So that's why I'm bullish.
I love that. I'll try and comment quickly, and I'll let Val and Jim chime in. But the passionate Bitcoiners are numerous and growing, in my opinion. Now, of course, as anything gets popular, you're going to have an influx of kind of the, normie mindset coming in as well. I think a lot of those people, again, will end down that path of freedom and self-sovereignty as well. Not all, but I think there's a good chance that's going to come to fruition. And the reason that I would echo that is, I just had an awesome time here over the weekend in my hometown, and we had the Bitcoin Rodeo was just a local conference that we've been doing for a few years here. But we also had the SAT market, which is a local Bitcoin circular economy we've established. And then I did a Bitcoin survival workshop that I hosted in the Rocky Mountains the day after. And so we had people coming together to Calgary from all over the place. Like, people came in from, all over Canada, all over the US. Some people flew in from Europe to be here. And like, Central South America, we've had people from all over come up Obviously, it helps that we have the Rocky Mountains here. It's beautiful, but also the community was great. And so we have all these people, all these merchants that are working on actually, yes, saving in Bitcoin, but actually also being able to use it day to day, peer to peer with people that you've actually forged real relationships with, which I think is so valuable. We had lots of, with the Bitcoin rodeo, they're working so hard at bringing in not just Bitcoiners, but people that are in, a lot of freedom movements. We have a lot of, we'll say, in independent Alberta maximalists here in Alberta that are looking for smaller, more local government, which I think is incredibly bullish. We've managed to find a lot of those people, as well as some of the gold bugs in and around and precious metals people, and turning them on to the idea that Bitcoin is a step towards the goals that they had originally wanted with precious metals. And the culmination of all this, and then to cap it off with this incredible group of people in the mountains where they were learning the tools of self-sovereignty, again, getting to the crux of why Bitcoin, because you can be self-sovereign, you can secure it yourself, you can use it, you can be censorship resistant. It's so bullish seeing people actually care about the tools and what they give to you. So enough of my ranting. Val, Jim, and Jim, feel free to chime in, whoever wants to first.
Go for it, Jim.
Yeah. Brandon, I like the way that you, I guess, your verbiage around it. I think it's important. And Ben, you mentioned the word as well, like passion. It's important that we have, there's a distinctive between passion and simple hype. And what hopefully we'll continue to see is actual passion that's informed by something of substance and depth, rather than just, hype that's passing and more of a fad based off of simple short-term number go up. A lot of time that's by people who are not educated and understand what they own, versus passion is generally rooted in something deeper. Of course, passion itself is not substantial enough to be adequate. So we have to make sure there's educated passion in there. That's why there's these debates, core and knots. Like I could go in there. I'm a moron when it comes to anything tech-wise. I could be super passionate and insanely misguided, but I'm glad that we have people who are way smarter than I am in these fields, who are educated and passionate. And this will continue to drive. There's so many fields and areas that this can touch, from helping people adopt Bitcoin, spend Bitcoin, hold Bitcoin, secure Bitcoin, all these things. And they all have their niche areas of passion, the different people they want to help, the areas that they want to bring further resources to, and if we have really smart people and really passionate people, and those people, and those smarts and those passions align, and you find a tribe to run with in that, like, this is really going to go places. So yeah, right now I like your bullish bit.
I love it. Val, I'll toss it to you as well to give some feedback to Brandon's topic here.
Well, I think, just dovetailing on passion, I don't know if you guys know what Ikigai is. And so it's like right. And so a lot of us are thinking, like, how are we going to make a difference in our world? What's our meaning? How do we, show up? I've been listening to a couple other, people who aren't Bitcoiners yet. But they talk about being obsessed, like passion versus obsession. And I think most of us Bitcoiners, who are the four of us at least, and I know a lot of folks who are in the watching this, and all of our friends and folks, like, I think I would take it a step further and say that we're actually obsessed. Like, we are obsessed with the future. We are obsessed with making a world the better place. It's not like, yay, I like, the Dallas Cowboys and I'm passionate about them. It's like, no, I'm fucking obsessed. Every morning I get up and I can't not think about Bitcoin and how it's going to make the world a better place for, of course, myself, my children, my children's children, my neighbors. And it's such a unique social network that is completely, like, Brandon, you were saying, we're all different, and we're not, we all come at Bitcoin from different angles and lenses and stuff, you know. And somebody posted this morning about, you know, just a lot of people have, you know, they put their little snarky comments about, you know, have fun staying poor, or, you know, you get Bitcoin at the price you deserve it. And I'm like, yeah, that's cute and fine to sit behind a tweet like that. However, the reality is, like, everybody on my block, I want them to be healthy, wealthy, and wise. I don't want them to be sick, dumb, and broke. And so Bitcoiners, even though we're snarky, and I'm the queen of snark, um, you know, like, I don't want my neighbors to be suffering in any capacity, you know, and I think that's something, you know, we kind of balance our little, you know, ha ha ha, I'm so cute and funny on Twitter, but like the reality is, like, everybody on my block, like, I got your back. I don't want you to be suffering, and this is not how we operate as human beings. And I think Bitcoiners, for me personally, in my, you know, humble experience of being a little pleb with all of you, it's shown me, like, the capacity for humans to love each other, no matter where we come from, no matter if we're, you know, blue, green, red, no matter if I'm brown, white, or yellow. It's like, we're all orange, you know, and that makes me really happy. And so, anyway, so yeah, that's my little nerdy riff on that.
Well, that's fantastic, and I love then when we get down these little rabbit holes that lend themselves to Bitcoiners leveling themselves up as well. When it comes to, again, reaching out and taking their self-sovereignty serious and actually using the tools. Like, again, the tweet from Stefan, he's talking about, you know, forks and knots versus core and L2s and multisig and all these different things. But the most important thing is that you know what's available to you and how to use it. And so again, whenever I get the chance, I pop up like, hey, like, go use the tutorials. So you can, you know, I've got a single page that will take you through like a whole bunch of different skills that you can level up. But if you don't take the time to learn, it's great. These shows are super fun, right? Like, we get to hang out and talk about how great Bitcoin is, but you need the step that comes after, which is using it, right? You need, you know, you can sit around all day and say, wow, this thing is so great and it's changing everything. But like, are you changing yourself? So, you know, use the tools, go study, go actually experiment, and reach out and grab that self-sovereignty.
Yeah. And can I just dovetail on that, Ben? Because like what you guys are doing with, you know, Bitcoin Mentor, and a lot of people, you know, it's like, okay, cool, I can go watch a video and learn how to use a treasure. Fine. Most new people, you know, unless you're like a nerd and, you know, excited about, you know, tech, you're not, you feel kind of alone, right? And so what you guys are doing with BTC Mentor, with Bitcoin Mentor, is supporting people even after they go into that step of, let's go watch a video. And so, and I did that, you know, and this was several years ago when I was first learning about Bitcoin. I was terrified. I had like, you know, whatever, $500 of Bitcoin on Coinbase. And I was like, I don't want to fuck it up. You know, that's a lot of money for me. And so I literally hired a good guy biker from Canada for $100. I'm like, will you make sure that I don't mess it up when I transfer it from Coinbase to my little treasure? And just the human interaction and touch points are so, so important, because it does feel weird and lonely out there. And it's kind of like, again, for those of us who aren't, you know, I mean, you know, just super techie, it's scary. And we don't want our life savings to accidentally get, you know, poofed, you know, and that's why I think a lot of folks are more comfortable leaving stuff on the exchanges. And so what you're doing, I think, is ultra important. And we need more of that. And I want everybody to just realize, like, whether you go to Bitcoin Mentor or you go to your next door neighbor, like, Bitcoiners are so happy to help. Like, we are like obsessed, as I said.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
so, yeah. Anyway.
No, that's great. Again, a great community, and I think when Bitcoiners see somebody who's curious and willing to learn, they're more than happy to dive in. You know, we spent years having nobody want to listen to us. that when we see the opportunity to talk our faces off, we will more than grab it. But
totally. And obviously Brandon at Swan, like you guys do such a great job there too with onboarding and making people feel like I'm a human being and I'm going to hold your hand through this process, you know? And I think it's very, very important that we all understand that. And Jim, I'm just meeting you. So I'm sure whatever you're doing is amazing. but I just think the more human interaction we have with this new world technology is going to make it more accessible to folks, especially, little plebs like me. Anyway,
one quick plug for the socially isolated who want to learn more thread here is find your local meetup.
Yeah.
Totally. I run the one in Minneapolis. I'm a little biased here, but shout out to Bitcoiners in Minneapolis crew. You guys are great. But these really are the backbone of this whole movement.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have one in your town, send me a DM. I'll send you my little playbook on how to bootstrap these things. They're not challenging to do. It doesn't matter if you're in a small town. I guarantee you have hardcore Bitcoiners sitting around wishing that there was a meetup.
Yeah.
And I say that because that's what happens every time I hear about meetups. That's what happened in Minneapolis. I was going to all the shitcoin meetups for years, and I could not stand another put lettuce on the blockchain conversation. So I just made my first meetup in Minneapolis, Bitcoin only, and make sure it says Bitcoin only, because that's how you're going to filter out the people who want to come. If you make some generic thing, the hardcores won't show up. And so just do it. It will enrich your life in ways you can't possibly imagine. And we've been meeting now since summer of 2019 every month, 350 members, people fly in for it. It's pretty wild. And we built real friendships. And it's, we have the core group. Now we have a Bit Devs in Minneapolis doing the technical discussions in Socratic format. There's Bible study, there's book club, there's meat sourcing group, there's a Nostr group. And we're training each other and sharing what we learn. And, we cheers in the bull markets and we commiserate in the bear markets. And our spouses and our close friends are thankful that we can get some of that Bitcoin energy out in a group of people who want to hear it rather than annoying those around us.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's awesome. And again, to your point, Brandon, if there's something that you want to see where you are, I think people often heavily discount the importance of starting local and realize that I think a good rule of thumb is thinking along the lines of, if not you, then who? There's always got to be a person that takes the action. And if you don't see somebody that has done so where you are that person. Yeah. You are the one. If you're sitting there and you're like, God, I wish there was a meetup, you're the one that is going to pull the trigger and make it happen. So be that person, build your community, and you'll be so thankful you did. And
seriously. And like, you can just do things, right? Like you can just start a fucking meetup. You can just start a women's group or a devs group or a Bitcoin beef, like any of it. Like you can do any of it. And that's I mean, we're permissionless. That's the thing that when that we forget, like people think they need a permission slip to do stuff in life. Bitcoiners do not think we need a permission slip. We just do the stuff, right? We show up. We're going to go do a meetup. We're going to go do a retreat. We're going to go do a barbecue. We're going to go do a sailing adventure, whatever it is. And it's like, when we see other people doing that, that's actually the permission slip, hopefully, for the rest of us to go, oh, well, I guess I can, have a knitting guild and talk about Bitcoin. Not that I like knitting, but, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, again, fantastic topic. The passion in Bitcoiners on, preserving and building out the social layer as well as the technical layer, I think is still strong, despite the fact that there can be noise. And so with that, we're going to take a brief breather, and then we're going to come back. We're going to find out why Val is so bullish. And then we'll do the same with Jim in the subsequent section. So
this.
We shall hear. We shall hear. If you're enjoying the show, please do smash the like button and give it a share wherever you're watching. Shout out to people watching on Rumble. If you were here last week for the news show on Thursday, you'll be aware that we got banned midstream, and 9 years of a YouTube channel disappeared with the flick of a button, or more likely the random calculation of some sort of algorithm. It was reinstated after 10 hours, but very clearly it is important to diversify and try and get content in places that won't be so willy-nilly with their policies. Either way, if you're happy that we're back, please do smash that like button, give it a share, and subscribe if you're not. We'll be back in just a minute to find out why Val is so bullish. See you guys soon. Keep your Lightning wallets handy because we're going to give away some sats on the other side.
Ooh, exciting.
Bitcoin Well is the best place to be buying and selling Bitcoin in Canada and the US. And now with Bitcoin Well Infinite, it's also the best place to be making large buys at their OTC desk of over $50,000. Their white glove service gives you fast transactions, no slippage, and the lowest fees. You can scan the QR code on the screen or simply head to bitcoinwell.com/Btcsessions to sign up today. And you can share your own personalized referral link to earn commissions.
If you've been around Bitcoin for more than a minute, you've definitely seen something made by CryptoCloaks. Since 2017, they've been the go-to for badass 3D printed Bitcoin gear, from custom home mining rigs to sleek hardware wallet mounts that make your setup look pro. I've been stacking Cloaks gear for years, and most recently I grabbed their Gamma case for my miner. Let me tell you, it turns some heads. You can customize everything, and of course, the legendary Bitcoin grenade, yeah, that's them. Hit the link in the show notes or scan the QR code to visit CryptoCloaks.com and stack your own custom Cloaks gear today.
DEBIFI is the best and easiest way to borrow against your Bitcoin in a non-custodial way. Funds are held in a multisig escrow where you hold a key, and the platform allows for excellent hardware like the Cold Card Mark IV and the Q. You have access to flexible conditions, the best rates, and institutional grade liquidity. If you're looking to make use of your capital, don't sell your Bitcoin, borrow against it. You can head over to debify.com to check them out, or simply scan the QR code on the screen. All right, we are back in. We're going to give away some sats real quick, and then we'll find out why Val is so bullish. And so I'm just sharing my screen over here on Well really quick. If you have a Lightning wallet, all that's going to happen is I'm going to toss a coin in the Bitcoin wishing well, and whoever scans the QR code on the screen first will steal the sats from everyone else. And there will be, let's find out how many sats it is today. All right, we've got 494 sats. Whoever's faster on the trigger finger will snag those from everyone else. If you snipe the sats, let us know in the chat. We'd love to hear it. Either way, we are going to continue on. And Val, I am going straight to you. Why are you bullish?
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. How many minutes do I have? Because I could go for 10 hours while I'm bullish. So give me a time limit so I don't accidentally barf on everybody.
Give me a good because we want to riff on it together too. So give me like, your good like 5-minute rant on what you're excited about, and then we'll ask you some questions about it.
All right, brilliant. So back in March, I was driving down the mountain. I live up in the mountains here in Colorado, and I was asking God, universe, spirit, whatever you call it. I use the phrase God, and I was like, God, am I doing enough with the gifts and talents and the resources that you've given me? And I'm like, what else should I be focusing on? Obviously, I'm focusing on Bitcoin. I like spirituality, I like personal growth, etc. I'm an empty nester now, and but like loud and clear, I got this, human trafficking thing. And I'm just like, fuck, and I know about human trafficking. I've learned, been aware of it for decades, actually. I have a lot of sexual abuse in my history as a child. And I was just like, are you sure? Like me? Like, why would you put that in my, field? And And I got the message that like, you've been training this for your whole life. And I was like, okay. Literally within 12 hours, a friend of mine in El Salvador, who I hadn't talked to for a minute, but she's somebody who I met at the first Adopting Bitcoin conference that I was really lucky to get to MC and, DJ and play at. She was like, hey, Val, I'm at an orphanage and they're helping kids with getting out of human trafficking cycles, and they're pregnant teenagers, and these girls have been abused, abandoned, and trafficked. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm going to keep, using my 2 ears and my one mouth. And so just little dominoes kept falling in my path, and obviously El Salvador, as we know, is, the Mecca of Bitcoin adoption. And even, it was just, So I was like, well, maybe I should come down and visit the orphanage and just kind of see what y'all are up to. So I ended up, connecting the orphanage with Raina and John from Me Premier Bitcoin. We started setting them up with, how are they going to start teaching the children how to save in sats? How are we going to teach the orphanage itself how to receive sats? What's their treasury look like? What's the, and, how can we start enrolling Bitcoiners in, supporting these folks? And so, because I like to DYOR, I got to go down there. I stayed at the orphanage for several days, and I got to hang out with Julie, who is Francis's, wife from Bull Bitcoin. We ended up doing a workshop with Cold Card and teaching them how to, get their cold storage together with the Bitcoin store. And so it was just like little bits of layers and layers and layers, And so we're also starting to work with Lightning Piggy, that we want to help, how do we support these young people to save in Bitcoin? And so one of the things that we all realize, right, is like, it's nice to go in and raise your hand and be a volunteer and yay, I did this thing. And then you go home and life is back to usual for you. But like, what happens to the folks who are boots on the ground? And so I got to go tour this place called Murph's Life. I don't know if you guys know Murph's Life down in El Salvador. Right. And so this dude, I swear to God, I don't even know how he has as much energy as he does. He's just making like, he's to me like Steve Jobs of philanthropy and foundational work type stuff. But so, going to see what's going on in Murph's Life, seeing what they're doing up there with regenerative ag, what they're doing with, buy one, give one kind of thing for the folks who are living on their like big retreat center. And I'm just like, you guys, we have to come up with a system, that's duplicatable in different parts of the world. And we open source it and we create kind of this open source playbook so that, if you want to support people out of whether it's domestic violence, whether it's human trafficking, et cetera, how do you learn best practices? How do you deal with the government, and we're starting to put together our little, open source playbook to do this. But then I thought like, well, but what are the steps involved for not just the orphanage and the organization, but what are the steps for the individuals who are experiencing abuse and violence and trauma? And so we put together a 4-step plan. And I was really grateful. I got to speak at the Vegas conference with Bob, who's the founder of the House of Life, which is the orphanage down there. And then Alejandra, Miss El Salvador, she was my roommate. And we were talking like, what are the things that needs to happen so that we're not just dropping donations on people, because that doesn't work. We know that. We've seen that in all over the world, not just our countries. We need to give people a pathway to sustainable sovereignty. And so number one, we need to rescue them. And we need to identify that these people are in a situation of violence. Number two, we need to give them rehabilitation. Number three, we need skill development for the 21st century. Not just let's go make pupusas on the side of the street or sell my body because I can get more money for my body than I can, working an hourly job. But number four, and this is where Murph's Life came in, and it got me excited, is where do they live after? You know, when you're coming out of a place of domestic violence or abuse, it's like you don't want to just put people, if you've rehabilitated them and given them some job skills, you're not just going to throw them back out in the streets and be like, high five, good luck. Where do they go? Where do they go live? Where are places that feel safe and that feel like I'm not going to get taken advantage of? I'm not going to get hurt. My child is not going to get hurt. And so Murph's Life has an interesting kind of buy one, give one model that he's working on with his land development and stuff. And so the people who work on the property with him, it's like, cool, they're going to build these little casitas so the families can live there. And then on top of it, they have an Airbnb. And so they get to start owning land and they get to start owning like a business model that feels empowering to them. And they're part of a community. They're part of a community that cares. They're part of a community that not only cares about each other, but it cares about the land. It cares about the community. And to me, my whole life has been just completely like uprooted since March because of this. And you know, so now we're working on these different, you know, circular economy projects, et cetera. And we're trying to figure out like, you know, how you talk, because like the children who live at these orphanages are wards of the state. They don't have the privilege of just, I'm going to walk out the gate and go down to the store and get a soda because I want to, and it's 3:00 in the afternoon. Like they're literally, I don't want to say in prison, but they're in this like tight zone of not having freedom. And so our job, I think, as Bitcoiners is to continue to share and teach them using Lightning Piggy, using Zapright, figuring out how the heck are we going to like show Bitcoiners, you know, yeah, this is how we can stop the cycle of abuse and trafficking. And, you know, like what Mike did, obviously Mike Peterson at Bitcoin Beach, he launched the whole circular economy because these kids were like abandoned, you know, and they're looking at their little cell phones and going, well, I can get more something today than I could yesterday because have this little thing called Bitcoin. And, you know, and so as Bitcoiners, I think, you know, it is our imperative, it's our duty to make sure that we are using the gifts that we've been given, you know, from God's spirit universe to make the world infinitely better than we found it. And I see that happening every single day. And it's like, it makes me want to cry all the time. And so what's really neat is what happened. So I went down to El Salvador in April, and I was just like, you know, doing my little due diligence thing. And I was like, y'all should take advantage of me while I'm down here. Like, let's have a party and I'll DJ for you, you know? And I'm, you know, I'm retired. I'm just do this for love and fun at Bitcoin conferences and stuff. So Will from Club Cocal, that's down near El Zonte, was just like, heck yeah, come down here, do it. And, you know, and Alejandra, Miss El Salvador, which is a whole bunch of us, we're just like, let's have a party. Julian, who runs a place called the Bitcoin Mansion, which is like a fucking mansion up on the hills, and it's like the 7-bedroom, like rock star mansion. He's like, I think I'm going to give you guys 3 sets of 3 nights, and whoever donates $10,000 is going to get 3 nights at the Bitcoin Mansion. And you can have, you know, a party, you can have a retreat, you can have whatever. So far, we've got 2 of those 3 spoken for because of the Bitcoin conference, and we were able to do the talk. And it's just like, all you have to do is ask, like, hey, we need this help. And like, people come out of the woodwork because they're just like, yeah, I got this. Like, Will donated us, hit its whole oceanfront property for us. The next door guy's Satoshi's bar right next to the Club Cocal was just like, okay, hey, guess what? It's Mother's Day. And all the girls and their babies came down to the beach at Club Cocal at Will's place. And Carlos from Satoshi Bar right next door was just like, I'm comping you guys everything. It was almost $1,000 worth of food for these kids and all of us volunteers. And we can just do things. And it's just like so cool. So anyway, so you guys inspire me. Everybody here who's doing this stuff inspires me. And that's why I am bullish.
I love that. I mean, the Bitcoin philanthropy thing, that angle is incredibly bullish because you've got a subset of people that have recognized one type of injustice in society through the siphoning of people's hard-earned savings and everything, but over time, those people, as we've seen, have more and more runway to change the world in the way they see fit. And some of those people decide to take that wealth and their new found position in life to some build businesses, some sail off into the sunset, but others stick around and genuinely put that money to use building communities and helping others. And I think that's an incredible thing to see. So I'll let maybe Jim chime in here, and then we'll follow up with Brandon. But Jim, thoughts here around Val's bullish reason?
I mean, money itself is simply a means to an end. It's not the end itself. And I think a lot of times with Bitcoin, we can get caught up in, a lot of times it's altruistic. We get caught up in Bitcoin being the end itself because we see it as such a solution to so many things. But we forget that Bitcoin is simply money, just the best form of money ever been created or discovered. But still, it's a means to an end. Money is a means of communicating what you value. And a tool to help you do what's important to you in life. And yeah, of course, like my wife and I, we certainly we try to save aggressively and grow net worth, a lot of that, so we can be generous. And I'm hoping that as we have this wave of people who come into substantial wealth, will use that to serve others. Gosh, maybe I'm butchering. I believe it was Hal Finney who tweeted like crazy early, who said, "Hey, well, we're going to be a people with a lot of money. We should go ahead and start thinking about how we're going to steward this well." That's incredible that he had that foresight. That was like when Bitcoin was quote unquote worthless. There was no monetary value at that point. So yeah, just something to continue to chew on and distill down. Okay, how important this is. How is this useful? Not just for me, but a way of actually stewarding this versus just spinning it.
Yeah, exactly. Brandon, I'll toss it to you as well.
Yeah, on that last point, Jim, Val, I think there's a huge change in who allocates capital in the future, right? The people who have money today, they earn that from various different ways. Obviously, we have an incentive system that rewards playing fiat games and getting an unfair advantage, getting closer to the money printer. So you're essentially telling society, if you want to get wealthy, you need to do some deals with the money printer guy so you get an advantage. And so in the Bitcoin land, how do those people get wealthy? Well, they're forward-thinking people. They took a big risk, and that's going to create a very different type of game in the future where the Bitcoin folks are very wealthy. And so it is no surprise to me that people like Val are using their position in life to make the world a better place. And I foresee a huge wave of that in the future. And so I think that's pretty special. To Val's point directly, the thing that I took away, first of all, it's a great story. I'm glad you're doing this. I'm not surprised you're swept up in this. And I love how you're thinking about it holistically, systemically, right? Yeah. We've all seen the amount of aid we send to developing countries. Here we just airdrop some food, and yeah, that's great for a week. But it's only temporary, and it doesn't create self-sufficient communities. It doesn't empower people to take control of their life. And so that type of aid is fleeting. And so obviously it's better to teach a man to fish, as they say. And so I love how you're thinking about each step and how it starts with the present. You're in a serious situation. You need to be rescued immediately. And that's step one. But I don't know the statistics. I'm assuming a large percentage of people who get rescued out of conditions like that, they don't have a path forward. They end up back in the same spot. Yep. And so thinking long-term, teaching them the tools to use Bitcoin in cold storage long-term, that is a great path for them to get out from under their circumstances. Simultaneously, I think the financialization or the monetization phase of Bitcoin aka when the number goes up really fast. That period is going to end at some point. And if you didn't figure out Bitcoin before that time happens, you're not really going to ride this thing up. Obviously, there are still positive externalities to having a good money, so everyone will benefit from that. But how cool would it be to give tools to people like this, give some Bitcoin to people like this who wouldn't otherwise maybe find this thing, and they might watch their material wealth go up in the next period here, and change their life for the long term and their kids, and who knows how far that impact goes.
And do you mind if I come back on that? And Brandon, it's so right, because like we're looking obviously just in general as all of us, we're looking at AI coming into the realm of being employees for companies, right? And so how are we training our young people, whether it's our kids, whether it's these folks from the orphanages, whether it's ourselves to retrain, like I can have a whole marketing department for $30 a month using AI versus my $30,000 a month that I would typically pay. And so we're going to see a lot of displacement of people. And, I think what we have to continue to focus on is like, how are we focusing on our hearts, but how are we truly because people don't want to feel useless. One of the most important things that people want to feel is useful. Like you want to die living a useful life. And yes, there are some people out there who are parasitic and they don't care and they just want to be consumers. But for the most of us in the bell curve, like there's something in our soul that wants to create and give and make the world a little bit better than we found it, And so as technologists, as entrepreneurs, as Bitcoiners, it's our job to continue to like push on those boundaries and figure out like how the heck are we going to meet those needs of being a human, and so like right now, just as at stage 3, we've got our little stages. We're starting to partner with Grand Canyon State University, which is over 100,000 people, and it's a Christian university in Arizona. And we're going to start doing mentorship programs for the kids down in El Salvador. And so the kids are doing entrepreneurship up here, and they're going to come start to visit, everything down in El Salvador. We've got like obviously leaps and bounds of how people can move themselves forward in these developing countries, but like it's so important to like engage ourselves and not feel like, again, here's the handout. Like we don't want that. We want people to feel skilled, whether they like to sew, whether they want to make birthday cakes, whether they want to do, fancy nails for girls, whether they want to go write code like BTC data devs in Africa, like we have to meet people where they're at with their obsession. And we have to give them tools to move forward. Otherwise, we're going to have violence and frustration and addiction and depression and anxiety. And so I think, looking at this from a holistic lens it's life or death, not just for these kids, but it's life or death for our communities, because we're going to see all this stuff happening in our own communities if we're not paying attention to folks who feel displaced and that they're not contributing to society. And so I think this is a macro problem, but I think we can solve it, within our own little, our street, our zone, our city, our county, whatever. And yeah. So anyway.
Val, to kind of round this out, but giving people a place to go and an action to take, where can people find the project and how can they contribute, be a part of it? How does that work?
Totally. So I sent you the link. It's micasakids.org. There's many ways you guys can contribute. You can obviously, send some sats. You can send, fiat. You can send whatever you want. One of the neat things about the facility at the House of Life, Mikasa Kids has 3 houses. So there's a boys' house, a girls' house, and a pregnant teens' house. So there's 3 orphanages there. The House of Life, where the pregnant teens are, has a separate building that's kind of got dormitory style housing. And that's where I got to stay. It was, on site. So if you have a church group, if you have a Bitcoin group, if you have a creative group, you can come down there and stay there and be on site and do workshops with the kids. You can do regenerative agriculture. You can do art. You can do lightning piggy, whatever we want to do with the folks. And so Julie and I did a vision board with the girls, and it was so important that we did this because I came down there and I had my whole giant suitcase of like canvases and glitter and glue and pictures and all the stuff. Guess what the number one thing that every single girl had on their vision board? Throw it out there. Give me a guess, guys.
A husband.
Mm-mm. Keep going.
A family themselves, for themselves.
They wanted a house. They wanted a home because they've been displaced. Now they're in an orphanage. They wanted to feel like, I want to have my own little cubby hole that's mine. And every single girl, that was like the centerpiece of their vision boards that they did. And so that's where stage 4 comes in. And that's where people like Murph's Life are helping to support this with the buy one, give one, and the Airbnb on top, et cetera. And so most people in these developing countries, and certainly even here in the United States, you can't even, I know people who are like ultra successful and kicking ass, and they do not have enough money for a down payment for a house. So they're constantly in this state of, I got to rent, I got to move. I'm subject to this guy raising the rent or whatever. And so stability, especially when you're a mother, you do this thing called nesting. You want to put the feathers in the nest and you want to make things like, I got this, my kids are safe. It's a natural instinct in our DNA. And so our fiat system is so broken and fucked up that mothers do not have an opportunity to create a safe, stable, consistent nest. And so what was really, really beautiful just across the board is these young ladies, these girls who are between 12 and 17 years old, they're children. They all wanted to have a nest and they all wanted to be able to feel safe. And so when we can fix the broken fiat system using Bitcoin instead, we have an opportunity to create more mental health, more spiritual health, more physical health, more relational health, more family health, and more community health for everybody around us. Because again, we don't want to have broke, angry, violent neighbors because of what's going on in the fiat system. And so Bitcoin fixes this. And this is why I am so fucking bullish.
I love it. If you're watching right now, I did drop it in the chat as well, but micasakids.org. I just shot off a lightning donation to the donate page, but I encourage you guys to do the same. If you go to the donate page, there's a Bitcoin option.
Yay.
And easiest bet is shoot off a lightning donation here, House of Life at blink.sv, or you can just scan the QR code right there. And if you want to learn more, then of course, check out the website, peruse around. But yeah, show some support. I think Bitcoin philanthropy, if Bitcoin's been good to you, use Bitcoin to be good to others. And
right. God bless you. Thanks, Ben.
No worries. And everybody, if you've been enjoying the conversation so far, if you love the cause, please do drop a like, share this wherever you're watching it. And we're going to take a brief 1-minute break here. And on the other side of it, Jim, are you feeling bullish over there?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Because we're going to come back. We're going to find out why Mr. Jim Crider is feeling so bullish on a wonderful Wednesday evening. So we'll see you guys in just a moment. Looking for a simple and secure way to manage your Bitcoin on mobile? AQUA Wallet has you covered. It's user-friendly and puts you in full control of your Bitcoin with secure self-custody. AQUA also supports Lightning and Liquid Network, making fast, cheap Bitcoin payments and asset transfers easier than ever. Plus, it even supports stablecoins, giving you ultimate flexibility. Built on open source code, AQUA is transparent, trustworthy, and perfect for beginner and pros alike. Ready to upgrade your Bitcoin experience? Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen now to download AQUA Wallet today. Securing your Bitcoin doesn't have to be complicated or invasive. With NUNCHUK's HONEYBADGER plan, you get state-of-the-art multisig with built-in inheritance planning and no KYC required. NUNCHUK is trusted by users to secure billions of dollars in Bitcoin. The HONEYBADGER plan offers 204 assisted multisig, guiding you step by step on mobile or desktop. It works seamlessly with hardware wallets like TapSigner, ColdCard, Jade, and plenty of others, so you're always in control. Plus, with non-KYC inheritance planning, you can ensure your Bitcoin goes to your loved ones. No private info needed. Take control of your Bitcoin today. Click the link in the show notes or scan the QR code on the screen to check out the HONEYBADGER plan. CoinKite has been in the game for years, creating hands down the best and most secure hardware when it comes to securing your Bitcoin. The ColdCard Q is an absolute powerhouse and my daily driver, and it's ideal for newcomers and advanced users alike. The TapSigner gives you a low-cost, user-friendly option for those just getting started or for convenience when traveling. You can head to coinkite.com and use code Btcsessions for discounts, or simply scan the QR code on the screen to get started right away. All right, we are right back in, and we are on to our final reason for being bullish. Jim, teeing up here. I'm excited to hear it. Why are you bullish tonight?
Yeah, so I, all day, every day, talk with people about money. And part of that is a lot of my job is orange pilling families. And we do everything with people's money, investments, taxes, all those fun things. For the last 5.5 years, whenever I try to talk with someone about Bitcoin, it's sort of, it seems like it's out of left field, and generally is a several stages of roadblocks to overcome. And it sort of seems like it's, yeah, you got to put on your tinfoil hat. I don't feel like that's been the case I'd say the last few months. It's interesting. I was actually talking with my other advisors today about, again, maybe it's just a small sample size, but the last few months, I feel like the people we're talking with, when we bring up Bitcoin for like our first time, and we bring up things like, hey, we should own Bitcoin, and here's why, or things about our current broken money system, our current debt system, we're not being met with like skepticism or the thought of that doesn't make sense, or a general, I'm not seeing, I don't understand why. Like used to, we talk about like people need to see the issue for them to understand that there's a solution that's necessary. So now that used to be the problem, was it spent so much time having to help people understand that there's a problem that Bitcoin is a solution to. And I'd say over the last few months, that's less of a problem. And I think that comes with things like Moody's downgrading US debt. So when I bring up like, hey, something's wrong with our debt system in the US, like US bonds, maybe not the best thing. It's no longer like, oh, well, my grandparents owned bonds for 80 years. It's like, oh yeah, I think you might be onto something. And I think that's awesome. Again, maybe it's a small sample size, but I mean, I talk with normal people all day, every day about their money. And yeah, it feels like just a general sentiment is starting to wake up to something's broken. And I bring up Bitcoin, like that actually seems like a valid solution, which is totally different than it ever has been for the people I've worked with. So pretty awesome.
I like this angle, and I also like this angle on given the fact that we've got Brandon here, because one of the things that happens in a fourth turning is a dissolution and trust in our institutions. Yeah. And what you're describing here seems like, people just took for granted the way things worked before, and now they're recognizing the cracks, more than cracks, the crumbling that has taken place in a lot of these things that have just been mainstays for people, just a given. This is where you put your money, and then you make it to retirement and you're fine. And a lot of people are realizing, am I retiring? Like that's kind of the sentiment. And so I feel like this is a good kind of softball over to Brandon here, because you've talked a lot about fourth turning, and maybe Brandon, do you want to, if you can, because there's going to be some viewers that may be unfamiliar with the fourth turning, but first off, like, do you think that this is something that is coming about because of a fourth turning, that recognition that our institutions are maybe not serving us anymore?
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to do a quick and dirty intro to that?
Yeah, I think that'd be good for anybody unfamiliar about the fourth turning.
Okay, I'll try and keep it tight. This is like a 30-minute intro to properly pitch it, but we'll give you the cliff notes. Book written in the 90s by two historians and demographers. They studied American history going back, let's say, 500 years, and they were just learning about history. And what they found was that they found this repeatable cycle that happens every 80 to 90 years. At the end of that cycle, we essentially look around and, oh man, all our institutions are failing. Obviously, we create them about 80 years prior, so they start to decay, they get corrupted, or their purpose sort of just fails, and they're not serving our country, our populace anymore. And things start to get bad, and we don't trust our institutions. So what do? We collectivize, usually due to a war, sadly. But that is a catalyst strong enough to mobilize the people. And then what do? We make massive change, we redo all our institutions, and we sort of reset the cycle, and we go forward from there. Embedded in his thesis here, or the author's thesis, is that generational archetypes persist, and they repeat in a predictable pattern as well. Essentially, we're all born, let's assume we're all millennials, we're all born at the same time. The context in which we grow up is relatively similar. So then we grow up, and we're sort of this new generation forged under the context in which we were born. And that generational cohort essentially forges our identity maybe 18 to 25. We sort of leave the nest, we immerse ourselves with our peers, and we're stamped. And then that cohort grows up, and then we enter a new stage of life. Let's say we become middle age and we have more power in the world. Well, we sort of push back on history in a predictable way, again, based on how we were brought up. And so without going into too much detail, the constellation of those archetypes, right, is the hero archetype in middle age, is the prophet archetype in older age, sort of as the mentors. And based on that, you can sort of predict the mood of society, and you can predict how we respond to catalysts. So that's the quick and dirty, fascinating stuff. Zooming in a little bit to Jim's point directly on trust. Well, we've been tracking this for around 100 years now, and we're at an all-time low in trust since we've been tracking this. I think it's around like 20%, maybe even below 20% of Americans would say that they trust their institutions. So that's obviously a bad sign. On the Bitcoin side, what does that mean? We see money printer going on. We see, hey, what's going on with the Fed? What's going on with politics? And every time those things show up in our lives, it brings more people to start looking for solutions. Obviously, Bitcoin's one of those solutions. And a little inside baseball from time at Swan is during the COVID money printer era, we noticed a massive influx of boomers coming to Swan and buying Bitcoin for the first time, right? They look around and say, wait a minute, something doesn't feel right. Is my retirement safe? And they start looking around. They find some content like this. Maybe on Ben's YouTube channel, and then they find their way to Swan, and here we go. And that same impulse is happening right now in politics. So we just saw the New York governor, they wanted to vote in a socialist. What's going on with that? And you see sort of reactionary comments on Twitter where saying like, how can these people be so dumb? How do they come to that conclusion? Obviously it doesn't work, which is true, but you have to look at it from young people's point of view. Mm-hmm. Young people believe that the ladder was pulled up behind them. They're locked out of the economic system. They can't buy a house. They can't do the things that they were, quote, promised under our social contract in our country. So what do? They identified a real problem. The economic system's broken, but they came to a faulty conclusion, which is that capitalism must be the problem. So let's try some socialism, some communism, right? Obviously, that's not going to work, but that tension's real in every single fourth turning. The previous fourth turning was 1929 to 1945. So you have the Great Depression into World War II. And during that period, the same tension was going on. The intelligista, or how do you say that word, intelligentsia, they were all flirting with communism as well. And so this is a normal pattern. We should expect it. And hopefully we can steer towards free markets for the good of humanity. But just want to bring that up. And then let's see. Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it. Like every time the state screws up, every time there's pain, people look for solutions. Summarizing Jim, and Bitcoin's having its day, and I think it will for a while here.
Yeah, And to me, again, to Jim's point, there are many cohorts that I've noticed that did have a, kind of a deep trust in our institutions in years prior, that are now realizing that something is up, and that, in many instances, Bitcoin may be the thing to replace that institution in some way, shape, or form. Again, with this event here in Calgary over the last weekend between the SAP market and the Bitcoin Rodeo and the Bitcoin Mentor workshop that we did, a lot of people are kind of maybe my age, some boomers, kind of millennial, Gen X, and boomer age, that are saying, oh, geez, I can't do the same thing that has been done previously. And, a lot of gold bugs coming in, that already understood, that you kind of have to take the bull by the horns. You kind of have to make your own destiny. But they're coming to Bitcoin. And again, Brandon, maybe if you want to just quickly mention, after a fourth turning, what comes about.
Yeah, absolutely. So I expect us to continue this chaos that we're all feeling right now. I think we're still ramping up to the climax, unfortunately. All previous fourth turnings had a total war: World War II, Civil War, Revolutionary War, and all total wars have happened during fourth turnings. So high correlation doesn't mean we're guaranteed to have a total war, but that is a sufficient catalyst to get us to mobilize. So expect things to get crazier. Expect the divide in our country, hopefully, to repair itself and focus externally on a bigger problem. Otherwise, we could have some type of civil war here. But after all this chaos happens, what do? Well, in the last second, classic human nature, we redo all our institutions. So I would expect a massive shift in how we do politics, how we do the money, how the geopolitical order is structured. I expect all that to change. And if you're wondering, hey, what kind of things might change? If we go back to the previous fourth turning I mentioned, we created deficit spending for the first time. We created Social Security. Hey, you lost all your money. Don't worry, we got you. We create FDIC insurance. Hey, the banks failed. Well, guess what? We'll create a central bank of central banks to bail them out type thing. We created the World Bank, NATO, IMF, right? Pretty much all the structures that we take for granted now were created then. And so I expect the same thing to happen in this fourth turning. And once we're sort of sick of fighting, we redo our institutions, there's this feeling of exhaustion in society. We're sick of fighting. We want to go back to raising a family and doing boring things again, not having to worry about where the bombs are dropped and who's doing this or that. And so in the first turning, it is kind of a renewal period. We become more family oriented. Culture takes a more of a muted, boring, conservative, traditionally conservative value set usually takes over. And that's a period of, the previous one would be like white picket fences, leave it to beaver, think 50s and 60s. And what happens then? The children born into that sterile environment, what do? Well, like all good children, they push back on their parents, and those kids grow up and they create the civil rights era, the psychedelic 60s, a period of internal transformation. All right, we're like, what the hell is going on? Our parents are boring. Let's go sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And so in our lifetimes, I would expect us to have a 20-year period of sterility and relative economic equality. And it will get boring for a while for those of us who like some weird stuff. But then our kids will grow up and they'll rattle our cages, and we'll be old people watching our kids do all this crazy stuff. So
you're just describing the classic, like, whatever, like, good times make weak men or whatever. Like, here's just that's the four iterations of this.
Exactly right. Yeah, if we go back in deep history, this type of cycle is probably inherent to social species like humans. We can't seem to help it. There's this weird pattern. Why does it happen? I don't know, but I think it's built into having a social species, and that's one way to explain it. Another way to think about it is the cycle is roughly one human life. And so we don't ever go back to total war if half the population viscerally remembers World War II, right? All the wars up until now have been little skirmishes. We're not really going all in. And now that we have the World War II folks essentially gone from society, guess what? We sleepwalk into war again because no one's around for it. So our human faults playing out at a civilization scale.
Val, I see you have.
Yeah, I'm like,
many thoughts. Go
I'm
ahead.
always like, I gotta write down the shit so I don't forget it. I think what we've got here, in addition to the fourth turning and our, weak men make, bad times, etc., we've got something new that is like throwing a wrench into the equation, which is called AI. It's also called implantables. And so I'm a mother of a 17 and a 19-year-old kid. And I asked my children, and I, of course, asked their friends, because I like to have, their friends over and just learn about their life and what's it like to be, a kid these days. And I was like, how many of you guys take Adderall? Hands up. Lots of them. How many of you guys are on antidepressants? Lots of them. Would you guys put an implant in your brain to get a competitive advantage so you can get a better job? Lots of them, not all of them, but we're going to start seeing something that we've never seen before in history, which is this singularity, as Peter Diamandis likes to talk about it, with technology and humanity. We have nothing to reference that, in a historical perspective. And so when we start to see folks, like, for example, if I'm like, I'm going to do the thing and I'm going to outperform all of you guys on my Bitcoin and my trading or my, creatine consumption or whatever the fuck I'm doing, right? Let's go. When you're in a life or death situation, and when you're looking at Maslow's hierarchy of needs and you're trying to get yourself up the ladder so that you can participate in the system that is fucked up and broken, like, you're going to make choices that might not be necessarily great for your health. However, they're going to propel you forward. And that's why people take Adderall. That's why we saw the whole FTX thing with Scam Bankman-Fried, or whatever. And so we have a lot of variables, I think, that we need to pay attention to. And not just get in this narrative of like, yeah, it's, this and that from the past. Obviously, but we are going to be accelerating into another place where, as we're looking at as an entrepreneur, right? Like, I can go in and hit ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or whatever, and I can come up with a marketing plan that I would have had to pay $25,000 for a year ago. And I can literally do it in 30 seconds. And so when we start seeing that level of acceleration, our hearts, our minds, our spirits are not accelerating at that same rate. We don't know how to keep up, and so then we're going to feel this like sense of uselessness and powerlessness and hopelessness, and like, where do I fit? How do I belong? And then you're going to see even more addiction, more violence, more problems with society. And so, so I think we need to pay extreme attention to this as Bitcoiners, and anyway, I think it's super duper important to like have all this great empathy and compassion towards the folks that we're talking to about Bitcoin. And then we're getting propelled a few meters forward, above these folks. And so I just want to, I don't know. I'm not afraid for the future. I'm excited for it. And I'm also like, I want us all to like, remember Red Rover, send Val right over. Like, we need to be fucking holding some hands so nobody's breaking through this barrier. You know what I'm saying? And so, I don't know. Bitcoin is kind of that blockchain that holds us together, and yada, yada, yada. I'll shut up.
I know whose hands I'm holding when we do Red Rover at the next conference. I think Val's going to have a strong grip there.
Yo, dude, let's go Red Rover. Send Ben right over.
Can I add on to that one, Val?
Yeah. I mean, of course.
So technology inherently creates unequal outcomes.
Yeah.
Technology is leverage. If you adopt the new tools, you have an advantage over your peers, and you reap the benefit unequally the more you apply that leverage, right? That's just true. AI might be the longest lever in history of all time.
I know, right?
And so what does that mean? It means an incredible amount of value is going to be created in the world by the people wielding the tools. And it's going to flow to an increasingly unequal pocket, right?
Yeah.
That's my base case on all technology. I think AI is the same. And so that brings up a big question is what do we do with the people that are not benefiting from the longest lever in history?
Right.
I don't have a good answer for that other than hurry up and buy as much Bitcoin as possible before AI takes all our jobs. And so start with that. And then we'll have to get a little more elegant for those who don't have Bitcoin to figure out what we're going to do. On the other side of technology, just to steelman the opposite position, is that technology also makes the world cheaper.
Yeah.
And so if we're living on a Bitcoin standard rather than a fiat standard, the gains that we bring into the world through technology also will make the cost of living go down for everyone every single year. And so there might be a world where we don't need as much economic output per person to at least have our basic needs covered, right? If we have a $5,000 or a $10,000 Android robot who does all your chores around the house and mows your lawn, does that then free up time for people to create value in the world that they wouldn't have had time for otherwise? And so obviously it's a complex system, both are true, but we are entering a brave new world and these questions need to be answered. And maybe AI apocalypse might be part of this fourth turning. It's accelerating very quickly. I think we probably have another 5 to 7 years left in this thing. If history repeats, things can get a lot weirder in that period of time.
It is about to get weird.
Yeah, I think so. Nothing surprises me at this point, and I don't know. Just I would just say strap in, plan as much for the future as you can. Stack those sats. Create value for others. Spend less than you earn. Saving money nobody can print. It's a pretty decent recipe to live by, I would say. But everybody, I am conscious of time. We're gonna round out here. This has been fantastic, but I do want to give you all a quick final word here. If there's any last thing you want to tag in, but also let people know where they can find you and what you're up to. Jim, I'm going to go to you first since we're just on your topic. If you have anything else you wanted to tag on, and also where can people find you and what you're up to?
Yeah, no, I appreciate you letting me be here, and all of your resources I have watched and referred to countless of your videos, so thank you. Yeah, again, I think I've said this on other times I've been on the show, like very bullish just on Bitcoiners themselves, sort of tagging along with what Brandon said initially, like such a great community who are doing awesome things. So glad to be part of it in a very, very small way. I'm on Twitter. It's Jim Crider TX is in Texas. I own a financial planning company. We help people with all things money. Our company is called Intentional Living FP, as in financial planning. You can go to a website, it's intentionallivingfp.com. If you have any questions, there's a calendar on there for 15 minutes. Even if it's a one-off, you don't want to hire me, that's awesome. More than happy to help you in any way I can. So, yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I should have mentioned everybody's handles are down in the show notes. So please do, if you're not already, give everybody here a follow and make sure you check out what they're up to. But Val, I'll go to you as well. Any final thought you might have, if you do, and also where can people check out? You can give them that website again, but also where they can find you.
Well, first of all, I'm so glad that you're back in action, Ben. And that was just nonsense last week. So I'm grateful for the Bitcoin community that came to your, let's not let this nonsense happen. And so I don't know, I guess my final thoughts is like, when you have this interesting community that cares about a purpose, like we can do great things together, and I'm just like constantly humbled and stoked to be a part of it and feel like a little, sparkly pleb. So I'm really grateful. And thank you so much for having me. And check out micasakids.org if you guys are interested in participating with the orphanage down in El Salvador. And the reality is, like, you don't have to go to El Salvador. There's a fucking orphanage on every block in every city. Every block. Okay. Every single city has an orphanage. Every single city has a place where there's a domestic violence shelter for people who've been hurt, whether they're men or women. So as we talked about earlier, start local, and if you feel like you want to get out, great, go for it. But anyway, just like every single thing you do matters. It really does. And you guys can. I'm at DJ Valerie Be Love all over the place. It's funny. I'm a retired DJ. I'm a financial person. I used to run a fund, a 9-figure fund, and be a CFO of a company. A lot of people don't know that about me because I'm just kind of chill. But I just want you guys to know me as DJ Valerie Be Love. So, anyways, come say hey.
Love it. Well, thanks for being here, Val. And Brandon, I'll toss it to you last. Any final thought you might want to throw out there, and more importantly, where can people find you and what you're up to?
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on, first of all. Super fun hanging with you guys. Yeah, back to the point that Bitcoiners come from all walks of life and you don't know what we're doing. Val's a great example of that. From CFO to DJ Val, B-Love, and all the crazy stuff you do now. So great example illustrating that. Final thoughts for me. If you are having trouble making sense of the world, it's accelerating, things are crazy, you're worried economically, why is everything political? I do encourage you to read the book, The Fourth Turning. For me, at least, it made a lot of sense. I found that in 2020, manic, cooped up in my house in Minneapolis, 2 miles away from George Floyd. And this book did help me sort of make sense of the world. Whether or not we can actually make sense of the world, it at least gave me the illusion that I had some sort of control over my destiny and helped orient my life in a way that's been productive. If you want a Cliff Notes version, I wrote a thread on Twitter. It's my pinned tweet. Just check that. There's an essay linked in there. So it's like a 40-minute version of the book through a Bitcoiner's lens and sort of my takes on it. That's that. Let's see. Professionally, I work at Swan. I've been there for 5.5 years. Very proud of what we built. It's a Bitcoin on-ramp. You can buy and sell there. You can buy in your retirement account. You can use our Vault product, which is a 2 of 3 collaborative custody. If you're a high net worth individual, you can get a private rep who kind of helps you through on your Bitcoin journey and fancy research events, stuff like that. Personally, find me on Twitter. All my essays are at brandonquittem.com. And my DMs are open. Come say hello. Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Good hanging.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate all of you joining me, getting bullish on a Wednesday evening with you guys. It's always a lot of fun. I do want to, again, Val alluded to it, but I do want to say a big thank you. Again, last Thursday, channel on YouTube got banned midstream, might I add. We were also streaming to X at the time, so people got to kind of watch the reaction thereafter. Yeah. Very interesting. Again, like 9 years of making videos, and it can just, snap, disappear like that. Of course, I do have everything backed up. I'm not I'm not the dullest tool in the shed, so I do have everything backed up. But I will say that the response was wild. This was the original post, 1 million views on the tweet, and the amount of shares and tags and all of this stuff. I've been banned 3 times now. The other times each took days, if not a week, to get the channel back. Because of the stink that everybody raised, I had the channel back inside of 10 hours, which was pretty wild. So thank you, everybody that just poked and prodded and made sure that things were corrected. Now, if you can, please do go find me on Rumble. I'm over there. I'm fleshing it out and kind of getting some stuff up there. Take a little bit, but the live streams are going there now. I will have tutorials going there ASAP. And of course, you can find the website, btcsessions.ca. Lots of stuff there. The Learn page that I showed you guys with a whole bunch of stuff. And of course, upcoming events and stuff that I'll be at and all kinds of good stuff. But there's a newsletter there. So if anything ever happens and you're on that, you'll be able to find me wherever I go. So yeah, just wanted to quickly say that. And then finally, I'll just mention, as Val so graciously already, you're basically my cheerleader this episode, Val. Thanks for that. But she already shilled all the things that I was going to shill. But if you do need some extra hand holding in your Bitcoin journey, if the tutorials are not quite cutting it and you need additional help, reach out to myself and my team at bitcoinmentor.io. We can make sure that your setup is rock solid and that you're confident in building your generational wealth for yourself and your family. So anyways, with that, that's bitcoinmentor.io. I want to say a huge thank you to Brandon, Val, and Jim. You guys absolutely rock. What an incredible conversation. Thank you guys. And yeah, that is it. And we'll see you guys soon. Thanks so much, everybody.
All right. Aloha. Thanks, you guys.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
Ben.
Bye.
Yay. Thanks, you guys.
My bad.
Thanks, guys.